Welcome to Carl and Heather Present,
the podcast where we dive into the insights, challenges, and humor of being married to someone who is nothing like you.
Are you ready?
Let's go.
Oh, don't you know it's Carl and Heather Present Marriage Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Carl and Heather Present podcast. Today, our guests are Craig and Molly Sanborn. Welcome, the Sanborns.
Yay.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you. Yeah, so glad you're here.
Glad to have you. All right, I'm looking at your bio. Homeschool parents from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Mom and dad to Poppy 12 and Tal 10. Tell me a little bit about Poppy and Tal.
You nailed it. A lot of people call him Tall, and there's only one L. So thank you.
People have
Good
not
job,
read
guys.
English.
I like
clearly
those names,
Tal.
too.
Yeah.
Those are fun names.
So it's just
Poppy
like
and Tal.
pal with a T, right?
Exactly.
Thank you.
That's what we always
Very
say.
good.
Tal your pal.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Craig is a speaker and youth pastor at a Wooddale Church in Edina.
Oh,
Edina.
you did
You
botch
got
that.
Tal right, but it's
Edna.
Edina.
Edina. Golly, like
Edina.
email.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. And Molly is a speaker and author and brings the joy to the world one cheeseball at a time with her cheeseball backpack dispenser. I have to tell you, the first time I saw Molly, I did not know we were going to be on a team together.
Oh, I remember
And I'm in
this.
an airport gate area.
Yeah.
And I'm just like sizing everybody up. We're about to get on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I wonder who's going to be on this speaker team with me. And I wonder if any of them are here. But I'm sure it ain't that girl who's handing out cheese balls to everybody.
And then you guys sit behind us on the plane.
We did. I remember that.
And then what? Were you mortified when you found out we were heading to the same place?
Honestly, I had a little shame. I was like, I felt like you're just a jerk. You know what I mean? Why didn't you believe the best about her and that she's an amazing person? Because I have since discovered, just for the video people,
Yeah,
will you just...
we need to know. So
Okay,
if you're
Molly,
listening to this, you
if
need
you're
to
listening,
watch.
Molly has a literally legit custom-made cheese ball dispenser that she wears everywhere and gives
Babe.
just people cheese balls.
Honey, that is
Wow.
way above average.
I love
Craig
that.
just got 5 cheese balls, 2 is average.
That's a lot.
exciting
Okay,
was that?
so Molly is known as the Cheeseball Chick. Her and her kids also compete in the sport Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, they
and
do.
Craig is their biggest fan. Craig is also a big Star Wars fan. He has his very own authentic movie mold stormtrooper costume. It's not just like a goofy Halloween mask, go to the cheap store and get it. It's like the same people that made his costume made the movie ones, right?
It's true
Is that
story.
right to say?
Yeah.
And what's the club you might get in?
Well, it's called the 501.
The 501
It's
Club.
world-renowned elite stormtrooper status where I don't know if you've ever been to like a ball game, a baseball game or something, and sometimes they have Star Wars night, and you see these hundreds of that's the 501. It's the legit 501, and I've been invited. I have not taken them up on the offer, but one day I could enter the 501 and make it official.
All right. Well, that's Craig and Molly Sanborn. Welcome. I'm glad you guys are here.
I love it
you.
so much. Okay, I want to know about y'all though. Like, how long have you been married?
Quiz time, babe. How long?
Yeah, since 2012.
He did. Are
2012.
you being serious?
Isn't that right?
Oh my gosh. We got married June 27th, 2009.
9.
Which
2009.
makes it, honey, where did
It's
those
flown
3 years
by.
go? That's 15 and a half years. You're trying to say we've only been married 12 and a half?
Yeah.
Our daughter, was she born
Oh
in
my
2012?
gosh. Yes, she was.
Okay.
That's why.
Maybe
I
that's
get it
why.
mixed up.
You've slept
I
since
shouldn't
then.
have put him on the spot.
So how did you meet? I want to know how you met.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I was a single youth pastor, just kind of doing my thing, living in a small town in north central Minnesota, and my phone vibrates in my pocket, and a friend sends me a text message and says, "Hey, Craig, would you ever consider dating someone 9 years younger? If so, go to Molly's website, tell me what you think, be objective." So I went to her website, found out we had a lot in common. We traveled in some of the same circles, but we had never met, never crossed paths. And I clicked on this one tab on her website called Fun Stuff, which opened up about 20 videos of her being her wild, crazy, loving life, extroverted self, and decided, I think I'm good. I'm going to move on with my life.
Next.
So
Next.
Wow.
Okay.
But there was enough intrigue there as well, because now her name started popping up in all these ministry circles
Yes.
that I traveled in.
Okay.
Time out. Okay,
Okay.
babe, you're skipping some details. He says he wanted to, whatever, forget this crazy girl he saw online, which, yes, I had just started wearing the cheese balls around, which,
Okay.
if you don't know all the backstory, it is a little weird, right?
Yeah,
Well,
right.
I mean, no, I love it, but I mean, it's a thing.
It's a thing. Okay, so Craig saw also that I developed and designed a coffee shop, and you went not once, but twice to the coffee shop to spy on me, to creep on me, to stalk me.
Right.
And,
And
he's...
we gentlemen call that research. Not
okay.
stalking, but
Research.
research.
So you weren't
Yeah.
totally weirded out by me. There was enough interest that you spied
Right.
on me, but we didn't meet that way.
Right. So a few months had gone by. I'm with a gathering of youth workers in the Twin Cities. Her name comes up again. And a friend of mine who I've been friends with since 8th grade, who's also the junior high pastor at Wooddale Edina campus, Eden Prairie campus. When Molly's name got brought up, she says, "Why do I know that name?" And took out her planner. You guys will love this. Palm Pilot. Remember those?
I do remember
the Palm
that,
Pilot.
yeah.
Took out her Palm Pilot and said, "Yeah, I'm getting together with Molly in 2 weeks to talk about being a woman in ministry and about public speaking." So I pulled my friend Heather aside. I said, "Okay, here's the deal. I got this text message. I keep hearing her name. You know me. Do some recon work. Go undercover. Tell me what kind of gal she is." And so she agreed that that's what she would do. And within probably 30 minutes of their time together, my friend Heather's calling me up on the phone and she's saying, "Craig, you have to do whatever it takes to meet her. I will tell her that you're going to get a hold of her, and thus saith your friend, get a hold of this girl." And so,
Yeah.
I mean, the rest is kind of history.
so I
from
passed
there.
I passed the friend test and
Yeah.
was recommended, and yeah,
Okay, so from that time
yeah.
to the altar where you got married, how long? How much time passed?
Yeah, so we dated for 9.
Dated for it's all
and
right.
then we're
I'll handle the
engaged for 9,
dates,
right?
Carl. I'll handle the dates.
That sounds
So
good.
we dated for 5. That's okay,
5,
babe.
9
months.
Got engaged 5 months.
Uh-huh.
5 months. Got engaged on his birthday in September, and then we were engaged for 9 months. So just after a year of
Okay.
meeting,
Yeah.
we got
Okay.
married.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been married. We're not quite sure how many years
Yes,
at this
I
point,
think-
but
Ish number of years.
an ish number of years. You have kids. How long after you got married?
Well, 2012, right?
Thank
Lenny?
you. Okay, not
Yep.
from not
Poppy
to- yeah.
was born
Okay.
November 12th, 2012, and so yeah, she's 12. We're
Okay.
3 years into marriage.
Okay, 3 years
And
into
then-
marriage. How soon you had said you saw the videos and you were like, "Oh, this extroverted." So, are you an introvert or no?
100% hardcore, yes.
Okay. So then, how soon after, or maybe even before you got married, did you realize, well, we're very different? Like, did that come up pretty quickly, or was it just like we complement each other so well, and this is awesome?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the online videos that I saw. So I was, it's not cliche to say I was 35 and content. I was like the classic single youth pastor, loving and serving the Lord in the context in which He had placed me in. But I was never opposed to marriage. But I knew that if I was going to get married, I didn't want to marry a carbon copy of me. I'm not that fun. I'm not that exciting. And knowing that marriage was going to change everything, I wanted it to radically change everything.
Okay.
So I knew that we were completely different, but I knew that if I was going to get married, this was the type of person that it was going to have to be. Somebody who loved life, loved adventure, who was outgoing, had a great personality, among other things. She's beautiful, as you can tell. But yeah, so I knew from day one. I knew before we met how different we were. And maybe it took you a little bit more time to figure that out.
Well, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I just remember growing up too. I had liked different guys, and my parents would always get this look in. Like it was often I was drawn to the really out there kind of wild, not bad wild necessarily, but just like the guys that everyone was looking at, like big personalities. And my parents would always just kind of give each other a look and be like, no, Molly, no, I think God has someone else for you. And so when I met Craig and he was so very different than me, something was like, yeah, maybe this could work.
Yeah. Okay.
And so initially, I think the differences were something that didn't seem like it would be a challenge. But yeah, they can be.
And so how long after you got married did the little things or even the big things that were differences start to kind of come to a head, or you felt like, man, we gotta figure this out because we're very different in this way, and it's not necessarily complimenting. We're not complimenting each other anymore. It's more of a divisive thing.
Well, I remember our first Christmas together. His family Christmas versus mine was like, it was like a comedy, really, how different it was. And so it was a couple years into our marriage where Craig pulled me aside after Christmas at my family's house, which is loud and crazy and wild, and we're competing at everything and competing to talk, too. So poor Craig never gets to talk because he takes a little too long to say something, and so people just...
Yeah.
But you came up to me and you said, your older sister said she sent her husband to your parents' room to take a nap, and I kind of felt jealous. So Craig told me that he wished that I had asked him, like given him permission to go take a nap. And so we've been working. I mean, my family drains him, and I love his family, but their pace is like, it makes me want to take a nap. And I love them so much, but it's so different. It's so different. And I don't really mean that because actually I have the best in-laws in the world.
Yeah.
They're incredible. But the difference is of just even how...
They're probably huge fans of this podcast.
Yeah.
That'd be your biggest.
They're watching our kids right now, actually.
Yeah.
Love them so much.
So how does that play out then? Slower paced, quick, and we can relate to that.
Yeah.
I'm you. We're
Oh my
on the right
gosh.
sides of the table here.
Come
right?
on now.
Speed to change, slow and steady.
Yep.
How does that relate in the day to day, and how do you do that yin and yang, and how do you work that out, and in marriage?
Yeah, it's obviously a process and something that can be learned, right? And so, case in point, she will now at social gatherings take a look at me and say, go upstairs, like now, like
I do.
Take your nap, take a break. So she's looking out for me, knowing what my needs are. But initially, it's a process to figure those things out. Knowing what the other person needs in various situations.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't want to marry myself. And I had this fear that when we did get married, I was going to somehow snuff out the light and the life that Molly adds to a room and to a situation. So I didn't want to hinder her or who God created her to be. So when we walk through airports and she's got the Cheeseball backpack on, what I don't want is for her to look at me and say, "Hey, come on over, be the cookie Craig or the milk dud dude or whatever."
Right.
Like that's not
Craig
me.
is awesome.
Craig, I like it.
So you do you, and I'm fine with that. So when she's engaging in conversations, it's very common for me to just pull up a bench and just wait. I don't mind waiting,
Yeah.
but I don't necessarily want to get pulled into the whirlwind that is Molly in the airport or in her social settings. So it's really knowing, I think, what each other needs in situations, allowing them to be who God created them to be. I've heard it said that oftentimes people will enter marriage thinking, well, I can change them.
Yeah.
Right. I'll change them when we get married, but oftentimes, 9 times out of 10, who you marry is the person a year from then, and 10 years in and 20 years in. So I wanted Molly to be able to be who God created her to be, but also have that hopefully reciprocated in the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I was just going to say that was a very wise thing to say. I think we are hopefully refined versions of ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
sharper, more honed in. But like to think that, I'm going to marry you to fix you or change you
Yeah.
is like a fool's errand. It's really, really, I think that's where a lot of disappointment in marriage comes up. It's just, I liked what you said.
Yeah.
Well, and the few times that I've been able to do some premarital counseling with couples as a youth pastor, kids who have come through the youth group or so on, or who are now young adults or young married, like that's something that I will ask them in the counseling. Are you willing to marry them as is
Yes.
Yeah.
right now without any pipe dream that they're going to become this different person or the person you want them to be down the road? Yes, there's of course room for growth and improvement, iron sharpening iron, but if you're not willing to marry them right now as is, then you're not ready to get married.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, Craig has done a great job at like allowing me to be me the way God wired me to be and giving me opportunities to, I guess, maybe spread my wings and do maybe a lot more socially, right, than you would want to. Like you've looked for opportunities to make that happen. And then I've learned to give Craig what we call it time. Introverted time. Well, I guess that would be introverted time. So we'll just call it it.
Yeah.
Like we say, can I have some it this week? Introverted time where I gotta really do the work to put myself in his shoes, which is really hard because I can't imagine any joy in watching a movie by myself in a theater alone. Are you kidding? Like he loves to do that. Yeah. So, but after 15 and a half years of marriage, I will say to Craig, hey, babe, you haven't seen a movie by yourself for a while. Do you want to go do that? I don't really understand it, but I know he needs it. And so we try to look for those kind of things to set each other up for success.
Okay, so I think I hear a lot of our story and your story. I heard someone say just tonight, jazz, she's orchestra. Oh, yeah. As a description of like it's both music, but like you gotta get in tune though. Jazz and orchestra, you still have to be in tune really on a emotional, relational, spiritual level. So like obviously you're different. How do you get in tune with one another?
That's a good question.
Well, I think without the spiritual component, it's impossible. Like without Christ as the center, without when the issues arise, when problems occur, without Christ as the center, like we're doomed. I tell students, I tell my two kids, what I've told my two kids is when the day comes that you desire to enter in a relationship or pursue marriage, everything is negotiable except that individual needs to love Jesus more than they love you. And that's what I pray for my kids nearly every day. Mm-hmm. Lord, send someone my kid's way who loves Jesus more than they love my kid. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I don't know what you go to. You can have differences and you can work through different personalities and temperaments and so on as long as Christ is the foundation and the center of that all. But if not, you can't base a relationship on activities, common interests. Those things are great, but they can't be the core. And I think because we have that at our core, that's our go-to and our fallback when we do feel the tension and have those differences.
Well, and it's interesting talking spiritually and differences. Like we need to connect spiritually in order to come together in our differences, but even trying to connect spiritually with our differences can be a challenge.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting. It was a year ago, this last December, we spoke at Family Life Weekend Remember conference in Charleston, South Carolina. And we were getting ready, to speak to 800 people. Mm-hmm. And we're from Minnesota and there's a beach. So we carved some time out to go for a romantic walk on the beach.
Yeah.
I love it.
And, to kind of get set up for the weekend. And as we're walking down to the beach, there was some stuff that was going on in our lives with some job stuff and different family things. And I just said, I asked Craig if we could pray together while we walked on the beach, because for me, that would be a way to really connect and draw in. And it didn't end up going so well.
So Pastor Craig, if you will.
Yeah.
I am not opposed to prayer whatsoever.
Let's just get that out there.
That's good.
I'm a professional. I get paid to pray sometimes. But for whatever reason in that moment, I just found it almost like I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? A hindrance to hitting the beach. Like, let's go for the walk and feel the wind in our hair. And so I said, well, honey, if you want me to pray, I'll do that. It's going to be more for you than for me, because I know God has got this, the weekend, the
I
moment.
just pulled a muscle in my reaction.
And that was not what she wanted to hear.
Oh,
right?
wow. That's funny. As you said that, I relived that whole moment. Had I just pulled a muscle, I did.
Like really?
Reacting
Like
right
right
now,
now?
I did. We
Oh,
might
wow,
need a
sorry.
little professional
So
help here.
instead of walking hand in hand on the beach together, we literally ended up walking in opposite directions. The speakers of the marriage
And
conference
there were other couples
hours before
that we were passing.
conference.
I was crying and I would putting my hood up and trying to
to be in
not look like the
disguise.
speaker that's been in the bio that they've seen, because but it's interesting because through that we talked it out and realized too that so much of it's not that Craig didn't want to pray and doesn't believe in the power of prayer and doesn't want to encourage me as his wife, but we were just seeing the situation so very differently. And what you explained to me later is you felt like you were like, I just totally trust God with everything. And like, he's got it. So what more do I need to say?
Yeah.
And I was able to explain to Craig that I found comfort in hearing my husband pray over this situation. And so when he said the prayer is more for you than me, that was like, yeah, it might be, but that was an interesting moment of us realizing that we both want the same thing. Like, we both want to be close to Jesus. We want our marriage to be centered on Christ. We want our kids to follow and love Jesus. And we want these couples that we're about to speak to know Jesus more than anything. Mm-hmm. But the way we even approach that can be different. Isn't that so crazy? Mm-hmm. And then you throw in the fact that we have an enemy that wants to completely destroy anything good that has anything to do with Jesus. And so, but then as we walked our separate ways, we did both separately pray and ask God to search our hearts and do our own little kind of time of confession. And I remember you said this at a conference a long time ago, the prayer, help me, help me, help me.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that's pretty much all I could pray at that point. Help me, help me, help me, and help Craig, help Craig, help Craig. Yeah. And we came back together and we were better because of it. Yeah. And then had some good material for the conference.
Were you walking and were like, dear God, this is mostly for Molly. But
In the
I just
prayer.
want to come to you right now.
Praying for my wife. Yeah. Oh man. So you're different, and you've said that. What do you feel like in the time that you've been married? Then how has the Lord, or what has the Lord taught you about yourselves, so that you can better relate and better serve each other? Because you said you had been single for a long time, mm-hmm. and so not only you kind of get into your own this is the way my life is going, and then you have to change a lot to be married to somebody else. And so what has the Lord taught you about yourself? Maybe what has he revealed to you about yourself that might have been more self-serving than others serving? And then how has that helped you relate to each other?
Well, I can tell you, I thought I was a great guy.
Yeah.
I thought I was amazing throughout my life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the first week in a marriage where I had this epiphany. I am so stinking selfish. Wow, am I selfish? I like things a certain way. My mother did things a certain way, and the expectations coming in were to replicate that. Unspoken, right? Unspoken.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it was quickly revealed to me just how selfish I am, how I like things in a certain way, in a certain order. And Molly's not going to fit that mold, nor should I try to force her into that or expect her to fit into that without clearly communicating expectations, right? How many problems could be solved with just clear communication? And I can't be upset with her when she's not meeting expectations that are unspoken or vice versa.
Right.
So, man, we've had to learn communication, to celebrate differences. And like we talk about in the conferences, about staying in our circle as well. We need to, I can't be praying, Lord, change Molly, change Molly, change Molly. And my dad always said this to me growing up. He says, Craig, it's not about finding the right woman. It's about becoming the right man. And stay in your circle. So what can I do to make this the best, healthiest, most God-centered marriage, and let the Holy Spirit have those same conversations with my wife? We can come together and share those things, but we really need to stay in our circle and focus on what we can do, our weaknesses, our areas of growth, and ask the Lord to give us the strength which he promises to give when we go to him.
Well, yeah, and speaking of going to him, I mean, that's what it's all about, because these differences that we work through, and there's many, which are often complementary. Is that the right word?
Complementary.
Complementary,
Yeah.
and really good. Like Craig I so need him in my life. If I didn't have Craig, I'd just be a crazy squirrel running around trying to do everything. And you bring some order and peace, and I kind of pep things up for you a little bit now and then.
You made the music illustration. We've used the illustration of a flag and a flagpole.
Yeah, okay.
I'm the flagpole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the flag flapping in the wind,
Yeah.
but both are necessary, right? I got to make sure she doesn't just break free and just take off and float over the ocean, never to be found
Yeah,
again, without killing her spirit. And I got to make sure, I don't know why you need me.
Oh, my word.
You know.
But it's when we talk about working through these differences, and I just think of that one night Craig was doing an all-nighter at church for youth group, but you had told me that maybe you'd get home and some leaders could stay overnight. And so I was waiting, hoping that Craig would come home. I have a hard time falling asleep at night without him. That's why I need you, babe.
There you go.
To help me fall asleep. And he had texted me and said something like, I'm hoping to be home by midnight, but then I didn't hear anything for a long time. And I'm picturing him like, busy, but also like, why can't you take a second to text your wife and I'm finding myself getting upset. I'm thinking about myself though, in this moment, right? I'm not thinking about him and the kids. And I did send you a text that had no smiley faces or emojis. And that's when you know that I'm upset.
Okay.
But I wasn't sure if he knew that I knew that I was upset. So the next day, I think I just said something like, where are you? ? But the tone in my heart was, where are you?
Yeah.
And the next morning, I asked you, I'm like, I had a grumpy attitude. Did you know? He's like, yeah, I knew. But I knew that after, he said, I knew that you also talked to God, and that after you spent time with God, like you'd feel better about it. Not that, and he didn't do anything wrong in that situation. Like he was being a youth pastor and trying to get home to his wife as soon as possible. But I loved what you said in that he had confidence that when I went to God, like to talk things through, that I would come out of that a better person, a nicer wife, and I am. Like when we seek God first, it makes all the difference.
All the difference.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So real quickly, what advice then would you give to somebody who's listening who they might feel like they're missing each other?
Yeah, they're walking down the beach going in opposite directions.
Yeah, well, how would you encourage them?
Well, I mean, kind of not to be redundant, but like what we did is we checked in with God and asked like, what do I need to do here? What can I take responsibility for? I can't change my spouse, but I can work on me. And as I do, and as I look to God, like it's that old illustration of the triangle. Here, honey, you can help me out. Like in the two corners. Yeah, it's like, here we are. And as you seek God, like you're drawn together.
Yeah.
And so that's, and also just the whole, like, remembering as great as Craig is, and you are amazing, and I love you, and I'm so glad that you asked me to marry
Those things
you.
are true.
Yeah, okay.
29 years ago.
29 years ago, right? And counting. In 1 minute, it'll be 30 years ago. He does not have everything I need.
Right.
And I don't have everything he needs. And when I start to think that he has everything I need or everything to make me happy, then I'm starting to walk the opposite direction. Yeah. So I need to keep finding my completeness, wholeness, identity, security in Christ. And then the rest is bonus. And I'm very thankful for you.
I appreciate that. She have said before, one of the more romantic things that I said to her before engagement, before marriage, was just looking her in the eyes and saying, "Hey, Molly, I don't need you.
Yeah.
I want you, and I want you in my life, but I don't need you to fill some void that Christ is meant to fill in my life." And that kind of takes the pressure off the other person too, to fulfill some need that maybe the Lord is saying, "Hey, I'm right here and I'm all that you need. And when you bring me into that, something beautiful can come out of that." But Christ has got to be the center at all times, in all things, and in all situations.
I love it.
Well said.
That's
Well,
beautiful.
Sanborns, thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
I love that you shared your story with us and the people that listen. It's going to make a difference because everyone's trying to figure this out. Everyone's trying to get in tune, but it's hard. And so thank you so much for sharing. If anybody wants to catch up with you, social media, books,
Yeah.
you're everywhere, schedule, all kinds of stuff. Just tell us, like, what's your social media? Craig, are you on social media?
I've got nothing.
That's okay. It's
I've
great.
got nothing.
Okay.
So he lets me take over that, and it is easy to remember, and
Okay.
it's an alliteration, Cheeseball Chick. Social media
Cheeseball
is
Chick.
Cheeseball Chick. You can find the reason behind what I do, which is the title of my book, Cheeseballs for Jesus.
Yep.
Funny, faith-filled stories to encourage and inspire. It's kind of like chicken soup for the soul, but cheeseball style. And I do it for Jesus, and he draws people in with the cheesy craziness. Right at the airport, you saw it.
I saw
And then
it.
I have
Tons of people.
conversations with people and tell them where my joy comes from. I know it does sound super cheesy, but the way that God uses it is just out of this world and incredible.
Well, I'll tell you, when I saw you and I figured out, like, once I got the whole context
Yeah.
of the cheese ball thing, I felt there was an old D.L. Moody quote, and somebody was fussing at him about, like, the way he did evangelism. And he says back to them, "I like my way of doing it better than your way of not doing it." And so I like your way of doing it, Molly.
Thank you. I like that.
Yeah. It was very, very good.
Cheeseball for you.
Hey, and I want to say,
He's eating it.
Molly provides cheese balls, but they're premium quality. They're not cheap.
Right.
These are American made.
American made Utz, Pennsylvania
Yeah.
cheese balls. Hanover,
it.
Pennsylvania.
Very good.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah.
Appreciate it very much. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Together on purpose.
Together on purpose.
Thanks, guys. Can we fist bump
Yes.
too?
Fist
All
bump,
right.
fist bump.
Sweet. Yay.
It's Carl and Heather.